6 years ago, this would rarely have been seen happening around Melbourne. Today, it's happening at least 5 days of the week, 48 weeks of the year, as Crawford Productions film crews shoot location scenes for Homicide. 6 years ago, you wouldn't have believed that an all-Australian drama series could last more than, say, 13 episodes. We're just shooting episode 266. And Homicide is Australia's top-rating TV program. It's watched every week by nearly 3 million viewers. It's won 5 Logie Awards and 2 Penguins. People often ask how it all started. Well, here's how. The first scene from the first show, as it was watched by Melbourne viewers on the night of Tuesday, October the 20th, 1964.
Tuesday, July 21st. University student Lindsay Murdoch prepared to take part in his first university stunt.
It's a holdup.
This was the first standard opening of the show, with a Studebaker Lark police car and the original cast Terry McDermott as Sergeant Bronson, Lex Mitchell as Detective Fraser, and Jack Fegan as Inspector Connolly. Melbourne wasn't used to filming in its streets. This was the first night scene ever filmed for the show. The bright lights, the police cars, the ambulance, they could mean only one thing then, a big smash. So 11 tow trucks turned up. While we were filming this scene, a fire brigade turned up. At our invitation. You'll see why. This was our most spectacular murder to date. And the man responsible for that murder was played by Leonard Teal. I was trying to kill the man who had identified me when the Homicide boys arrived. And we were on our way to Homicide's first gunfight. Lex Mitchell was a karate enthusiast. He needed to be in this scene with Michael Buddy. Terry McDermott took a more direct approach with bad man John Dart. Arrests weren't always this easy. Peter Annenson led the homicide team a wild chase in Aftermath and delivered the show's first real knockdown punch. The chase is almost over, and Terry McDermott is about to receive that unrehearsed punch. There it is, but he's hanging on, and the chase is over. Jack Fegan was late for the action here. But in the same episode, he came up with some unrehearsed action of his own. Suspecting an attempt on his life, he checks his garage. The boy is Alan Bickford, currently Dan Kelly in Tony Richardson's film Ned Kelly. And that knife is genuine. Both actors wanted to make the fight as real as possible. Several times the knife missed Jack's body by inches. He entered into the spirit of the thing, and the fight ended in a series of punches that didn't miss. At this stage, Alan wasn't acting. And neither was Jack. It wasn't only fights that went wrong. Terry and Lex borrowed a launch to chase Kurt Lertischer, but nobody warned them about a submerged rock close to shore. When their launch was taken from the water, there was a deep gouge along the bottom and the propeller was curled up like a flower. Damage bill, £200. This was another very expensive scene from the early days. Actor Rod Walker is about to haul that Cessna out of the hangar, but the doors haven't opened far enough. The shot is cut just before the wingtips crash into the doors. And we have a second bite at it with the doors fully open this time. Now, in the chase scene that follows, watch carefully, and you'll see the neatly flattened wingtips of the Cessna. The scene is over. Damage bill, £400. This scene was filmed in the Dandenong Ranges with character actor Roy Day. Stuntman Peter Armstrong drove the burning car over the cliff, jumped clear, and rolled down the slope after the car with his clothes smouldering. A bystander who had just arrived thought it was all too realistic and dashed to the rescue. Luckily, someone had also called a tow truck. So the car was hauled back up the slope, relit and pushed over the edge once again. Damage bill, a double stunt fee, a tow truck fee, and high blood pressure for the director. An unusual accident happened in The Scent of Death, episode 7 of Homicide. Police dogs were being used to help trace a missing boy who had been kidnapped after witnessing a murder. In the climax of the show, police dogs led the detectives to the murderer's hideout. For these next shots, one of the police dog handlers stood in for actor Keith Burney. Even the handler had thick padding under his sleeve. The Doberman attacked, missed its grip on the arm, and ripped a deep wound in the policeman's leg. When Keith Burney took over for the final shot, he didn't have to act looking scared. In those early days, no one took more risks than our stuntmen. Actor Don Crosby starts to climb a ladder. Then we swing in stuntman Mick Ryan. And move Don back for this convincing pose. In this scene from The Missing Letter, a Melbourne Grammar boat crew are about to find a body. The body will be stuntman Peter Armstrong floating face downwards with his hands tied behind his back. It was a tricky and dangerous stunt. An oar clipped Peter's head, momentarily stunning him. But a rescue boat quickly moved in as the camera cut. In the long list of scenes that went wrong, this one almost ended in tragedy. On the Geelong highway, a young psychopath with a grudge against the police. Let's go back and see how that motorbike crash was staged. In the first shot, stuntman John Armstrong synchronizes his move with the car and swings off the road. For the second shot, a dummy is mounted on a bike and tipped from the roof rack of a speeding station wagon. But the bike bounces farther than planned and misses cameraman Alan Arnold by inches as the director drags him back.
Well, of course, we all took risks in those days. This was a risk for Crawford Productions. Homicide, this was untried. It was a risk for Crawford Productions, and it was a risk for the Channel 7 network. Because up until this time, the track record of Australian-produced drama was anything but satisfactory. In fact, it had been rather disastrous. Anyway, we got Homicide going, and as the months went by, the ratings began to climb. And of course, we had to then endure tremendous opposition against us. They threw the lot. We had the Dick Van Dyke Show, we had the Danny Kaye Show, we had feature films, we had Mitch Miller, you name it, and this was all thrown against Homicide. But it reached the top, it fought its way through and got to the very top rating position, where it holds its position still today, 6 years later. Now, lots of people say, why? How did all this happen? How did this program win through and be quite such a sort of a historic mark in the television history? Well, there are all sorts of theories. My own theory was that the public were asking, loud and clear, for Australian-produced drama, and Homicide was just that.
Audiences responded to the realism of Homicide. From the outset, it was the policy of the series that crime would never be glamorized. In characterization and treatment, violence was shown to be ugly and unrewarding. In this scene from The Old Game, two prostitutes have struck trouble with a customer they have tried to rob. Now Murray Fields reenacts the vicious murder on which this episode was based.
Knock the bludger out.
Give him one for me. Give it to him, Harry.
One of the things that gives Homicide its realism is quite simply weather. No matter what the weather's like, we have to go on shooting. The opening scene for an early episode of Homicide was set on crowded Elwood Beach on a beautiful summer afternoon. On the day the scene was to be shot, 93 points of rain fell, and the temperature didn't reach 50 degrees. Here's how the director handled the problem.
Friday, January 29th, 10 a.m. After a sudden thunderstorm had cleared Elwood Beach, Peggy Mann ran along the beachfront looking for her friend Madeline Duncan.
In episode 26, Lex Mitchell left the show, and Senior Detective David Mackay joined Sergeant Bronson. You remember my first episode as a detective? I'm caught breaking into a shop. At this stage, my homicide career doesn't look too promising. But it turned out all right in the end. Senior Detective Mackay was one of the team, and I was very glad to be there, even if they did spell my name wrongly. In the next episode, we struck one of our nastiest killers, played by Neil Phillipson. After this killing, he brutally bashes Sergeant Bronson in a knockdown, drag-out fight that left Neil with a badly swollen nose and Terry with a cracked rib. We catch up with Neil eventually, and by this time I'm spoiling for a fight. My first in Homicide. We didn't always come out of things as well as this. But we ended up getting our man one way or another. Our nastiest group of killers were probably these larrikins from the episode Sunday Frolic, amusing themselves with a cripple. We had another ugly group of young thugs in Wolfpack. Here they're robbing a shop owner, played by Agnes Dobson.
No! Give it back!
In another scene, the gang crashes a party. This episode proved highly controversial. It would have been nice to believe that packs like this didn't exist. But when we made this episode, these gangs were a major problem. In another episode, The Violators, we dealt with pack rape. Some people found this episode offensive, but it was designed to carry an important message. Many parents were hushing up incidents of pack rape, supposedly protecting their daughters. In this episode, we showed in dramatic terms that pack rape should be reported. The impact of that message on the viewing public was vouched for by senior police officers. Homicide was helping combat the pack rapist. Homicide stories are based on actual cases, often changed so that they can't be easily recognized. But sometimes a case is reenacted almost exactly as it happened. In Color of Hate, we recreated the fatal shooting of a young constable. The parents of the murdered policeman watched this episode, and they wrote us this letter. When we heard that an episode was to be based on the shooting of our son, we discussed together whether or not we would watch. We decided in favor of viewing the episode, and we are very glad that we did. We regarded the program as a fine tribute to our son's courage and devotion to duty. Thank you most sincerely. That letter has a very special place in our files. It's rather nice to remember when somebody has a go at you for working on just another crime show. Sometimes, in restaging actual crimes, we meet strange problems. In this scene from A Question of Honor, we reenacted an attempted murder in which a new Australian fisherman was shot 3 times. We staged the scene on the rocks where the actual shooting had taken place. Now, actor Tom Dysart was faced with a tremendous task of making it believable that a man shot 3 times could drag himself up that cliff, the same cliff that had been climbed by the victim of the real shooting. From the very first episode of Homicide, the Victoria Police gave us tremendous help in the production of the program. Members of the Wireless Patrol, uniformed constables, forensic science men, members of the Mobile Squad all appeared in the series. The Search and Rescue Squad have played a part in many episodes. Here, a diving team is searching a dam.
Looks like we've got a buddy.
The finding of this body led us to one of the most difficult and controversial scenes we ever tackled in the early days. For the episode Witch Hunt, we recreated a black mass in authentic detail. It was filmed one Saturday night at Eltham as temperatures dropped to freezing point. For this scene, that was a real problem, as you'll see in a moment. One of Homicide's most unusual locations was the ironclad Cerberus at Half Moon Bay, once the pride of Victoria's Navy. In the gun turret, between the old muzzle-loading guns, we're waiting for a delivery of illegal drugs. Filming this scene, we struck an unusual problem. A huge conger eel, which lives in the wreck, attacked our diver. As he fought the eel off, the diver was hit by cramps, and we had to rescue him. We came back another day with another diver to finish the scene. In this same episode, we wanted to interview a way-out young folk singer called Libby Hart. She gave herself quite a build-up. And when that door was eventually opened, Libby Hart was played by Liz Harris, who 2 years later was to become Mrs. Leonard Teal. I remember this episode for another reason. I had my first car chase. The sports car is a TVR Grand Tourer driven by a drug smuggling artist played by Terry Norris.
All mobile units. Murder suspect is headed west along the boulevard towards Grange Road Bridge. My first car chase was over. 2 episodes later, I had my second car chase. Semi-trailer chase. The truck was driven by Adelaide actor Les Damon. We didn't know it then, but we were going to see a lot more of Les Damon. 2 episodes later, we nearly had our last car chase. In the episode Holiday Affair, Max Osbiston was playing a man who had murdered his own daughter. He was driving an early model Vanguard with plenty of punch. We filmed the scene on the Great Ocean Road outside Lorne. This was our second episode with the new Falcon police car. Filming chase scenes like this one, you have to take calculated risks to get the most spectacular effects for camera. In this chase, we kept the police car as close as possible to the edge of the cliff. As we took one corner, the wheels caught some loose gravel, the back swung out, and we clipped a white post. We slewed inches from the edge of the cliff. The cameraman was filming out of the window as it happened. The shot of the wild skid to the edge of the cliff is cut into the closing moments of the chase. That was the end of the Vanguard. But after a quick paint job, the Falcon was good for many more chases. Like this one in Flashpoint. Flashpoint was the first episode of Homicide filmed entirely on location. It was shot in the week before Christmas 1965 in the country around Buxton.
wish I was 30 years younger.
There were no stand-ins here. No studio rocks. No phony backdrop. This was real. Because this was Homicide. Three episodes after Flashpoint, Gerard Kennedy played a Pentridge convict in an episode called Vendetta, one of the Homicide milestones. The convict's housewife hostage is driving him away from the jail when she sights a police car. So I spend the rest of the episode in hospital while a huge manhunt is staged.
A key figure in the hunt is Senior Constable Bill Hudson of Forensic, a gun expert and crack shot, played by Les Damon.
In the climax of the episode, Bronson and Hudson catch up with the fugitive as other police units close in.
He isn't dead. I only wounded him in the side. Right here.
Watch him, Bill.
Get back!
Brian,
Hudson shot him.
what's the latest on Mac?
He left the operating theater half an hour ago. He'll pull through.
If you think I need a priest, Jack, send for one, will you?
Might be wise, Frank. Get a priest, will you?
Jack?
Yes, Frank?
If anything does happen, will you see Pat?
Yes, of course.
Everything's pretty tied up. Oh, just one thing. Harry Haynes is my Aunt Sally. He's working on the Bradwin case. Look after the old boy?
Sure, until you're back on the job.
The death of Sergeant Bronson marked the end of an era in Homicide, now 56 episodes old. Les Damon joined the team, and Senior Detective Mackay became a sergeant. Detective Hudson's role as a marksman provided dramatic material in several episodes. In The Terror That Strikes, he is forced to kill a murderer. In The Snipers, a psychopathic killer is trying to break through a police cordon, holding as hostage a man who has bitterly criticized Hudson for killing men in the course of his duty. We filmed all day in rain and occasional snow on one of the coldest days in Melbourne's history.
Give yourself up. Give me that gun. I can't. Give it to me. I don't know why I did it. I do.
Homicide was now in its third year, its popularity still increasing. There was no problem in gathering crowds like this one for the murder scene in Flashback. In the next year, a young Sydney detective called Peter Barnes was attached to the homicide squad, supposedly for one case. He was played by George Malaby, who dropped straight into this wild little scene in his first episode.
Okay, Barnes. We'll go back when you're ready.
Detective Peter Barnes came through with flying colors. George Malaby had joined the team. Once again, we had a swinging young bachelor in the show. In an episode called The Payoff, Redmond Phillips played a normally quiet man who suddenly rebelled against everyone who had underrated and overshadowed him. A man who rebelled with a gun.
This is more on your line, Bill. Take it. If he fires from up there, you'll have the advantage.
Have you talked to Morgan? Yeah. He says he won't come out, and we can't get in because all the doors are bolted. He challenged me to shoot him from here.
Well, don't say anything more to him. We've had a look around the other side of the building. We should be able to get in there without much trouble.
We'll take him alive. There'll be some tear gas here soon.
See you, Doc.
Good luck.
Detective Hudson hung up his carbine. Les Damon left the series after appearing in 104 episodes. In the next episode, a young policeman from Forensic joined us on a case. His name was Albert Costello. He was played by Lionel Long. And Lionel joined the team. Through the years, Norman Yem had been one of our favorite bad men. First, back in episode 10, The Hook. In Good and Sufficient Reason, he played one of our most convincing death scenes. In Vicious Circle, he gave us a few problems. Of course, there was Flashpoint. And in Big Boys Don't Cry, he gunned down several victims, firing more shots than any other murderer in the history of the show. Now, in episode 186, The Hero. He played Timms, a jail escapee who becomes a popular hero in spite of the fact that he is a vicious and cowardly killer. In episode 204, another homicide era came to its end when Jack Fegan left the show.
Just wanted to say goodbye personally, sir, and have a nice trip.
Well, thanks, Peter. Should I say Mr. Chopper? Well, let's get on with it.
Jack's place was taken by Inspector Fox, played by Alwyn Kurtz.
Driveway now. If you would, please, Cole. Drive out again about a minute or so after Cable cuts the mower engine.
Right. Now, what about the Hartleys and Miss Spencer? Do they know their part?
Well, they say they do. I'll go and check.
Alwyn Kurtz joined the team. Six episodes later, Detective Costello volunteered to try and rescue a man trapped in a cave. There was a rockfall. The next episode was based on the Ryan and Walker case. Senior Detective Jim Patterson was assigned to help in the pursuit. Norman Yem had joined the team.
So we have the homicide team as it is today. We like to think that the four of us, the regular performers in the show, have played a big part in its success, but we're also very much aware of two other groups of people who have helped to make the Homicide Story a success story. First of all, the actors who have played the 3,700 supporting roles in the series. Many of them who have gone on to stardom in other films and series. Actors like Don Pascoe of Animal Doctor, Ben Gabriel of Contrabandits, Susan Howarth of Sea Spray, Mark McManus of 2000 Weeks, and Ned Kelly, Enid Lorimer of Motel. These actors and many more like them made their first drama appearance in Australian television in Homicide. We like to think that Homicide helped them, as it's helped all Australian actors. We know how much they've helped us. Away from all, there's one name we couldn't leave out. The late Al Mack.
a favorite with our audience and our crews in many episodes. Al was a vaudevillian, a link with another era of Australian entertainment. It was quite accidental, but rather appropriate that Al should have been featured in this, the first scene ever shot for Homicide. Apart from the actors who've supported us through the years, there's another very important group of people who have put the show where it is. The backroom girls and boys, the writers, the designers, the directors, the cameramen. But let's go back 3 months to the very beginning of the work on this episode. Let's find out how it started, and then follow it right through to the finish. This will be the other side of the Homicide story. This is Luis Bayonas, one of 12 writers who work on Homicide. He has an idea for a story based on some research material he's been studying at home. The idea may become an episode of Homicide. That will be decided at a story conference.
Well, now, the question is based on a real case.
Yeah, well, it's based on the real, but it's slightly changed from the real case.
Where did the changes come in, Lewis?
Well, there were 3.
Sonia Borg, Graham Foreman, and Louis' wife, Lynn, make up the editing panel for this conference.
The wife and the baby.
Jim, any problems as to
The show's full-time police advisor, ex-detective Jim Poltz, checks the authenticity of the detective work.
I'm moving a lot. One thing I think we should do, we should change the name Peter. That was something, wasn't it? Because it comes too much close to Peter Barnes, Peter Smith. Well, that shouldn't be a problem anyway.
No, because again, the names are taken from the real case.
Ah.
I have the feeling we have to change all.
Angus as well?
Not Angus, no.
Executive producer Dorothy Crawford and senior editor Jim Stapleton make a final check of the story, and it's approved. Louis tucks himself away in his flat for the next 3 weeks. Working 6 to 8 hours a day, often starting at night and working until dawn, he writes the first draft of the script. No sitting around waiting for inspiration. Hard, steady work, breathing a new life into the bare facts of a true murder story. Then follow 4 days' work with editor Graham Foreman, tightening, polishing. Rita Tanner checks that the edited script will run to time. Minna Warnicki checks that it will run to budget.
Live, half an hour for Barnes, Patterson, and Duffy.
When these checks are completed, the script is released to the typist's pool. The 70-page script is typed in 1 day. Then it is checked and printed in the Crawford Productions multilith department. It is automatically sorted and stapled. Episode 266, Have You Heard About the Lawrences, is released 6 weeks after the first story conference. Until now, the characters in the script have been ideas, based on real people. Now they must again become real. And among the 4,000 actors on Crawford Productions files, casting director Henry Crawford must find the actor to fill each of the 10 roles in the script. An actor who is available and willing to accept the fee we can offer. Gary Conway, one of the 2 film directors who work full-time on Homicide, has studied the script and estimated the time he will need to film each scene. Now he juggles filming time against availability of the cast to draft a schedule for his 5 days of filming.
Is Ken Shorter there, please?
Drama coordinator Helen Rowland checks the draft schedule with the cast.
For filming for the Lawrences. We'll need you Thursday, July the 9th and Friday, July the 10th. The live dates August 3rd, 4th and 5th.
Then her assistants send scripts, location and costume details, and traveling and accommodation instructions to each of the actors. Actors provide most of their own wardrobe. When uniforms or special pieces of costume are needed, wardrobe mistress Pat Forster supplies them. If an actor's measurements aren't on file, she must contact the actor or his agent.
We need a size 7 cap.
Okie doke.
There's that torn pocket.
The props department hunts out the signs, the bottles, guns, shovels, everything used by the cast in film scenes.
In the studio this week, and I think an A&B phone would be beaut. Plus that poster, and all you do is just get it on a board from PMD.
A Monday, 2 months after the first script conference, Luis Bayonas, film director Gary Conway, and assistant director Paul Jansen have a look at some possible locations for filming.
It's a bit too far gone, I think.
It's not much bush around, is there?
And we need a bit more bush to connect with the other places.
They're pretty hard to match the live, though.
Yes, because we don't have one.
This wasn't quite right. But a derelict house in the Warrandyte district is almost perfect.
I think this is much better.
Much better position than the other place.
Yeah, the position.
Look at all the bush around it, too.
Position and the walls, and that's a good place for the hideout.
Yeah.
Windows.
Well, the other place looked better, but there was nowhere that you could hide.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
For the, undercover bit.
I love the other place with the burn color and but
They check that the house will fit the action of the script and that its interior can be duplicated for the studio scenes.
That one's too open.
You can hide in here. You can walk. They won't see you.
The Hurstbridge police station will also feature in the episode. As a matter of routine, this will be checked with police public relations.
Yeah, that's it. Cooper House and the Wizard.
Crawford Productions here. I'd like to speak to somebody in connection with doing some filming for a homicide episode at the Jumping Creek Reserve.
Could I speak to Sergeant Cook, Public Relations, please?
Well, if possible, Wednesday of next week would be a good
Hello,
time.
John. It's Crawford here. We want to see if we can do some filming next Thursday at the Hurstbridge Police Station.
Friday of the same week. The location survey is completed. Now the film team meet with the producer Paul Eddy and Bill Hughes, who will devise the camera treatment of the studio interiors.
You like the house, but you don't like the police
station?
station?
But we do the trick of not showing the thing too much. With the little tree and the things.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
No?
Yes. Well, the super won't look funny over the shot of the police sign, right?
That's why...
Does it look a bit of a mess when you have wording over wording?
It will. That's why I was thinking of having a little pan here. You know, the sign, pan, and during the pan.
The following Monday morning, 8 a.m., location filming begins with a 9-man crew. Equipment is compact, easily portable. The camera is a 16mm Arriflex, synchronized with a 1/4-inch Nagra tape recorder. Sound is picked up by a microphone on a handheld boom. While the crew set up for each shot, the cast rehearse their lines and establish the characterizations they will complete a month later when the studio scenes are videotaped. The director checks each setup with the cameraman, Igor Uzens. This will happen about 40 times each day. 40 separate camera shots, each one set up, rehearsed, filmed, perhaps filmed again several times. This is part of an action scene between a Land Rover and our police car. On your screens, it will be through in a few rapid and exciting shots. Out here, it's painstaking work. Positioning the vehicles, lining up the camera and sound, cueing the drivers, filming each small segment of the action. Often the Land Rover is being filmed on its own. So, out of camera range, the pursuing detectives stand around, waiting for our turn. And that's a big part of the story, waiting. Rain gives us plenty of problems in this show. The police car sinks into mud and strikes a boulder. The bell housing is pushed against the flywheel. She's out of action for half a day. At one stage, even our Land Rover gets bogged. So we think we've had our share of problems for the episode. But we are very wrong.
Quiet, please. Sound's rolling.
Here's some action you won't see on air in episode 266. Gary Conway is rehearsing a scene in which we're supposed to chase the Land Rover along a road into a paddock. As the Land Rover drives through, the director sees a dangerous slick spot near the gate. He tries to stop us, but I get the signal too late. The damage isn't serious, so we have to keep filming to meet our schedule. When you see episode 266, you'll probably notice those dents in the side of the police car. You'll know how we got them. The 5 hectic days of filming are over. They come to life again in the small theaterette at Crawfords, where the rushes, the first rough prints of the film, are viewed, uncut. Now Graham Preston, one of the 2 film editors on Homicide, breaks down the film into individual scenes and takes of each scene. In the sound department, the original sound, recorded on 1/4-inch tape, is dubbed to 16mm for easy handling with film. Using a moviola machine which handles picture and sound, Graham Preston begins the 40-hour job of editing the 20 minutes of outdoor film for the episode. Slowly, shot by shot, the sequences are built up.
He was after her. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to upset me. How did you know? Johnny told me. I was a friend of the family. There's no friend of mine, not Mug. Stop by now, me not fussing him. There's no friend of mine, not Mug. He was after her. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to upset me. How did you know?
Director Gary Conway carefully examines the finished job.
There's no friend of mine, not Mug. What happened this morning, Mr. Lawrence?
Can you go back?
There are 450 cuts in the 20 minutes of film. Each one is critical.
Right away, sir. Friend of the family. There's no friend of mine, not Mug. What happened this morning, Mr. Lawrence?
Cut box. Can you cut it in tighter so that it's, right on Tom's other line?
No, Stop by now, me not fussing. There's no friend of mine, not Mug.
Suppose he comes in hard on on Tom's line.
He was after her. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to upset me. How did you know? Johnny told me. I was a friend of the family. There's no friend of mine, not Mug. What happened this morning, Mr. Lawrence?
11 weeks after the script conference, the assembled picture and sound are viewed at a double-head screening. Here, Paul Eddy and Bill Hughes check that the film will blend successfully with the studio interior scenes. Continuity must be checked. Any necessary changes made to the script.
It's well in there.
Did everyone pick up the shed in the background?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Fair. Go forward.
At the end of the scene, when he indicates...
He indicates camera right.
Yeah, and we're left with it. When he exits frame, it's still there.
Fair enough.
Oddly enough.
Bill Hughes checks camera angles on studio floor plans. Set designer Tracy Watt is matching her interiors to the film locations.
Do you think we might need a ceiling across the top?
Yeah, we would, definitely.
Any trouble with lighting, do you think, if we go, say, from there across to there?
Well, I'd rather dark anyway, as usual.
Fair enough, yeah, good.
Back in the sound department, music supervisor Gary Hardman starts fitting background music to the film action.
We'll scrub that just for the time being. When we get back to the head, take a timing from where the Land Rover starts off until it turns off to the road, and we'll see how we go from there. I think we'll try that first one again, Cliff. It was better to me.
Yeah, it's better with a slower tempo.
In the matching department, supervised by Bruce Buchanan, the carefully protected original film is edited to match the work print, which is used during handling by the editing and sound departments.
Homicide episode 266, The Lawrences, final mix scene A.
2 weeks after the double-head viewing of the film, the dialogue tracks, the edited music tracks and specially made-up effects tracks are all mixed and balanced to provide the finished soundtrack for the film scenes.
What's the level on B? 12. 14 on D.
Monday morning, a month after filming, and 13 weeks after the script conference, the dry rehearsals begin.
This is a very bad state. Everything's like dead, completely dry, finished. Yet he still had the guts to take off after the other thing.
I read that statement about Angus.
Oh, yeah.
I read that statement.
Outlines of the sets are taped on the floor of a rehearsal studio. We rehearse our lines and moves under the keen eyes of the studio production team, now including HSV7 director Alex Emanuel, checking camera angles and the points at which he will switch from camera to camera.
Blowing his nose in the kitchen, but he's not afraid of lunatic. An attractive woman living with two blokes in a place like this.
Good day,
Constable Johnson, Detective Barnes.
Hello.
Sergeant Mackay.
How you doing?
Well, Jim?
Nothing come. The man is still at it, sir.
There's something wrong with the whole setup, but I don't know what. Now, Harry, you live here, you know the Lawrences. What do you make of it? Speak up.
Fine. Could we brisk up the whole interview if your entrance could be a little more businesslike? It's a bit of a plod in at the moment, and the whole thing is while we go through all these.
Each small detail of moves and groupings has to be checked here to save valuable time in the television studio. The dry rehearsal continues through Tuesday.
Well, we can't get in any faster, can we?
Well, you're plodding in at the moment. You've got a fairly brisk move in. It will work itself out on the floor anyway when you've got the door and all that.
Let's play the music up.
Cheers. Good luck.
Wednesday morning, 5 a.m. The setting crews have finished work at the Channel 7 studios in Dorcas Street, South Melbourne. The lighting crew have almost completed 8 hours' work, lighting the sets and bringing them to life. The 4 television cameras are checked for picture quality. 7:30 a.m. The production and direction crew watch the film scenes in the studio control room, checking atmosphere and continuity details for the interior scenes they will record today. 7:45. The studio team of 30 is geared for the day's work. And we're getting ready too.
What happened after I left the pub last night?
We got drunk.
What time did you leave?
Not late. 9:30.
Oh, yes. What you
Oh,
started?
last night? No. At 6:30.
About 7:30?
6:30.
Oh, that's not too bad.
You see, we don't have any beautiful lizards to go out.
Blue eyes, don't you?
Then we start the 10.5-hour day in which we must record 30 minutes of interior scenes for the episode.
Make it sound easy, Tom.
Each scene is rehearsed for cameras and sound. Stopped when problems are struck. Problems in angle, lighting, sound. We help as much as we can. Very grateful for those hours in the rehearsal studio.
Anywhere, I'm taking the day off. We're going to have a nice, quiet weekend. We're not going to see anybody. We're just going to stay here, just the two of us.
You're mad.
Now come what?
He always turns up. He always turns up when we have an afternoon nap or anything. Oh, Doll, we just decided to spend the day together. Anyone home?
Well, tell him you're going out and I'll tell him.
You tell him. You talk to him. G'day. I was just driving past and thought I'd pop and say hello.
Hello, Johnny. Come in.
Heard about the Lawrences?
This morning.
Tom Oliver.
Up in the control room, the production team sweat on the 4 small monitor screens linked to the cameras covering the action.
Can he come in now, please?
Then it's a take.
Quiet. Action.
Whoever put all that bloody rot into your head's mad.
Action.
Now another scene.
You know, I think the 6 times. Johnny Dunn's been walking before me.
So would we.
I'm sick of getting
All the players.
Well, still the same on that lens and on the platform.
Now, this is a little difficult. I want you to pass Mac earlier and clear him earlier. So, would Smith kill his own son? Move off. Couple of steps. You know, I've been to 6 homes.
Would Smith kill his own son? You know, I've been to 6 homes and Johnny Dunn's been at all of them before me.
Same with me.
I'm sick of getting ghost information.
Yeah. Alvin, the end position.
Instructions, corrections over the studio loudspeaker. More instructions from Channel 7's floor manager, Jack Bell. So it goes on through the day. Start, stop, start again, rehearsing, recording a scene on videotape, checking it, perhaps recording it again. With that cold audience of bulky Marconi cameras watching every move. Not much action, not much excitement, very little glamour. And after 10.5 hours, the interior scenes are completed. And the following day, we'll start filming episode 270. The next week, the filmed exterior scenes are dubbed to videotape and integrated with the studio interiors in a complex process of electronic editing. Out of this technical jigsaw comes a single roll of tape, an episode of Homicide.
And so 14 weeks after the writer's first ideas on the show, we have episode 266 of Homicide in the can. A roll of tape that represents 2,227 hours of work by 83 people, but it represents a lot more than that, more than the thousands of words of script and the miles of film and sound tape, more even than the 6 years of very hard work. You can't judge the success of Homicide. You can't measure it in just statistics. It's made for less than 1/10 of the budget of American TV programs, and yet it outranks them all. The reason for its success is often discussed, but we think it's pretty simple, really. It's a show about Australians, made by Australians for an Australian audience, and we do it as well as we can. We hope that you enjoy episode 266 and many, many more to come. Good night.